Sound correct? Everything's good? Ready to start? Great. Hello, welcome to the 5th lecture of our course. Today we are going to talk about risk assessment, its purpose, methods, and the creation of personalized safety plans with clients. Intimate partner violence, or IPV, can occur anywhere, regardless of the type of relationship or the gender of the individuals, and it affects the lives of millions of people around the globe. Violent situations not only cause distress in a person's life, but also can create life-threatening conditions. In these cases, professionals from various fields working with survivors or perpetrators of IPV need to assess the situation. The goal is to provide safety guidelines for all parties involved, and especially for female victims. According to studies in the field, the consequences of IPV are more severe for survivors when the violence has recurred over a long period of time. The risk of severe violence and even murder increases when a survivor attempts to leave the abuser and end the relationship. Therefore, when a woman reaches out for professional help, many issues need to be addressed before any action is taken. In these cases, risk assessment is the best tool to ensure the client's safety and avoid dangerous situations. It is defined as a decision-making process through which we determine the best course of action by estimating, identifying, qualifying, or quantifying risk regarding the safety of each victim or the possibility of another attack from the perpetrator. Assisting and guiding women to remain safe is not an easy task, and plans need to be personalized with care and attention to each case. Many different risk assessment tools and approaches are used by various organizations that deal with IPV. They usually include assessments of 3 main risk components: lethality risk, the seriousness of the situation, and the risk of repeated violence. In general, there are 3 approaches to risk assessment: the structured approach, the actuarial approach, and the unstructured approach. Let's talk about each of them in detail. The structured approach in risk assessment utilizes a questionnaire with a set of fixed questions for the client to answer. One of the first risk assessment tools, designed in the 1980s, provides a good example of the structured approach. The Mosaic Threat Assessment System is a computer-based method for comprehensive case assessment with either a male or female perpetrator. The Mosaic tool allows the assessor to break a situation down to its elements and work factor by factor. Based on the information collected through the questions, a report is generated to assist IPV professionals. The report indicates the risk of violence, threat escalation, and homicide. The Mosaic tool has been widely used by the U.S. Supreme Court Police, the U.S. Capitol Police, and many universities in the United States to predict and avoid possible threats. Another widely used structured instrument for risk assessment is the danger assessment. This tool is used specifically to assess the risk of homicide by a partner or ex-partner of an abused woman. It was developed by Jacqueline Campbell in 1986, who noticed that intimate partner homicides made up 40 to 50% of all murders of women in the U.S. The danger assessment tool includes a calendar and a questionnaire. On the calendar, the woman is asked to mark each day when physical abuse incidents occurred at home and rate them on a scale from 1 to 5. The questionnaire has 20 yes or no questions that cover all the main risk factors. They include past death threats, the partner's employment status, and the partner's access to a gun. This tool is specifically beneficial for abused women who are in denial about the recurring problem. During the last 25 years, the danger assessment tool has been used by law enforcement, healthcare professionals, and survivor advocates in many parts of the U.S. However, a major disadvantage of the tool is that it only covers severe cases of physical abuse and is not suitable for the majority of IPV cases. Another structured risk assessment tool developed by a group of scholars in the 1990s is the Spousal Assault Risk Assessment, or SARA. This tool focuses on spousal assault in all forms of intimate relationships, including same-sex and different-sex couples. It consists of a set of structured professional guidelines for assessing spousal violence. They address 20 risk factors that reflect various aspects of criminal history, social functioning, and mental health. The risk factors were selected based on a comprehensive review of professional and scientific literature. Evaluators consider the presence and relevance of individual risk factors and make summary judgments of risk. The second approach to risk assessment is the actuarial approach. It was suggested in the early 2000s as an alternative to structured risk assessment tools. The actuarial approach uses statistical models to analyze the long-term risk of violent recidivism. Usually, the presence of a survivor or perpetrator is not required to complete the survey, and the analysis is done by algorithms. One example is the Ontario Domestic Assault Risk Assessment, or ODARA, which was developed in 2004. Police officers and other professionals who utilize criminal justice records use ODARA in combination with statistical estimates to predict the likelihood of recidivism by perpetrators. It consists of a scale with 13 items that include different psychological and sociological factors, such as age, criminal history, family of origin, antisocial behavior, substance abuse, and possession of weapons. One of the disadvantages of the model is that it does not consider the depth and complexity of intimate partner relationships. It can only be used for nuclear families and excludes same-sex partnerships. The third approach to risk assessment is the unstructured approach, in which an IPV professional collects all the needed information and compiles a risk assessment report based on their own judgment of the situation. The information comes straight from the survivor and/or perpetrator. The professional can ask them to take psychological tests, fill out questionnaires about the history of their relationship, and describe previous incidents of violence, substance use, possession of weapons, children involved, housing conditions, etc. Afterwards, the professional analyzes the information and provides their own opinion based on their impression after meeting the survivor or perpetrator. Even though the unstructured approach allows the professional to grasp all the small details of individual cases, the big disadvantage is that it is predominantly subjective. The professional doing the assessment might be affected by personal prejudices, may be ignorant, or may miss important details. It is also important to note that not all professionals are adequately trained to conduct risk assessments. Therefore, the major weaknesses of such tools include limited reliability, validity, and accountability. In the end, it does not matter which assessment approach is chosen, as the key is to identify the presence of risk factors. The more that are present in a case, the greater the danger for the client. However, it is important to keep in mind that these are contributing factors, not the direct causes of abuse. Not everyone who is identified as at risk becomes involved in violence. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, 4 levels of risk factors are linked to greater likelihood of committing IPV. The first level refers to individual risk factors, which include low self-esteem, emotional dependence or insecurity, young age, depression and suicide attempts, heavy alcohol and drug use, anger and hostility, history of aggressive behavior at a young age, poor behavioral control or impulsiveness, lack of nonviolent social problem-solving skills, being a victim of physical or psychological abuse, traits associated with borderline personality disorder, low income or unemployment, low academic achievement or low verbal IQ, hostility towards women, attitudes accepting or justifying IPV, desire for power and control in relationships, having few friends and being isolated from other people, antisocial personality traits, and conduct problems, or unplanned pregnancy. The second level of risk factors consists of relationship factors. Marital conflict and fights, tension, jealousy, possessiveness, and negative emotions within an intimate relationship. Dominance and control of the relationship by one partner over the other. Marital instability, divorces or separations. Unhealthy family relationships and interactions. Parents with less than a high school education. History of experiencing physical discipline or poor parenting as a child. Witnessing IPV between parents as a child. Economic stress. association with antisocial and aggressive peers, and having few friends and being isolated from other people. The third level consists of community factors. Poverty and associated factors, for example, high population density or high unemployment rates. Low social capital, lack of institutions. Poor neighborhood support and cohesion. Weak community sanctions against IPV, for example, unwillingness of neighbors to intervene in situations when they witness violence. And high density of places that sell alcohol or drugs. The last level is the broadest and consists of societal factors. Traditional gender norms and gender inequality, for example, the belief that women should stay at home and not work. Gender stereotypes according to which men should support the family and thus make the decisions. Societal income inequality. Cultural norms that support aggression toward others. Weak health, educational, economic, and social policies or laws. A combination of these factors from different levels contributes to the risk of becoming a perpetrator of IPV. They interact and affect the individual at multiple levels, and the presence of many risk factors at once can have negative cumulative effects. Investigating them through risk assessment questionnaires may help professionals identify and prevent violent behavior and recidivism among perpetrators, as well as assist survivors to remain safe. Even though their approaches vary, all professionals who work in the field of IPV agree on the importance of an accurate and validated risk assessment. The first reason for this is to help the victim and their children remain safe and avoid any risk or danger concerning the perpetrator. The second is to predict the risk of recidivism among perpetrators, since that enables professionals to take appropriate action for the safety of all parties involved, including people in future relationships with perpetrators. The third aim is to properly guide the survivor and the perpetrator to services for mental, physical, and psychological recovery and through counseling and/or psychotherapeutic interventions. Additionally, the prevention of future harm against an intimate partner should be set as a primary goal. This can only be achieved through risk management strategies. They include monitoring, which involves monitoring changes in risk treatment. Supervision, which involves restricting the perpetrator's rights or freedoms to decrease the likelihood of further violent behavior. And victim safety planning. Risk management in IPV is defined as a process through which all relevant authorities manage the safety risks identified in a risk assessment. These activities may be directed towards victims, for example, safety planning, towards perpetrators, by using police powers to pursue, detect, and disrupt offending behavior, or towards victims and perpetrators in combination. The scope and type of activities undertaken should be informed by risk assessment, implemented within a multi-agency framework, and monitored for effectiveness. The aim of these activities is to reduce the threat posed by the perpetrator and protect the victim from further violence and abuse. The most popular method of risk management involves developing and utilizing a personalized safety plan. This involves identifying and documenting the steps required and resources available to optimize safety for all survivors in a family. Planning should take place through a separate discussion with each client, during which you identify her needs, weaknesses, and hazards that need to be avoided. It is important to discuss dangerous situations that could occur in all relevant settings and surroundings, such as her house, her work, or her children's school. Safety plans are structured more efficiently when they are broken down into thematic sections or steps. We have identified 9 main thematic sections. Not all of these are relevant to every situation, but those that are should be discussed with the client when creating a personalized safety plan. Number 1, ensuring a survivor's safety during a violent incident is unquestionably the priority for all professionals involved in such cases. Discuss how the victim usually avoids violent situations and where those situations usually happen. Based on the responses, discuss a possible safe place while urging and assisting her to identify places where she is most vulnerable to violence. For example, you can recommend avoiding arguments in the bathroom, garage, kitchen, near weapons, or in rooms without access to an outside door. Guiding questions for this discussion include: Has there ever been a time when you successfully managed to avoid a violent situation? How did you achieve that? Which strategy or behaviors do you think helped you? Where does violence usually take place? Please try to name the most common places, times of day, or situations in which violence usually takes place. Name 2 safe and 2 unsafe places that you have in mind and explain your reasoning. Number 2. Within the context of the safety plan, discussions addressing safety when preparing to leave are also essential. It is best if the victim thinks about this in advance to be prepared and thus increase her safety. For example, discuss and/or make together a list of places where she can go or hide, people who would help her, for example, who she can call for assistance once she is in a temporary safe location, ways to keep her plans secret, for example, how to make sure that the perpetrator does not know that she is making plans to leave, preparations for leaving quickly in an emergency, etc. You may ask, what are the main risks and dangers that may arise when trying to leave? How could you prepare to avoid and/or prevent them? Write your answers in a table with 2 columns, risks and preparations, and assess their severity and feasibility. Reassess and rearrange your priorities if needed. What are the key elements of preparation? After naming them, think of 2 to 3 paradigms, alternatives, or solutions for each one and write them down. Number 3. Create a detailed list of the things the victim should take with her when leaving. These may include her passport or ID, birth certificate, children's birth certificates, and medications. It would also be useful to have some extra clothes packed and some money saved in advance in case she has to leave quickly during a crisis. When discussing money, a client can be reminded that she is still entitled to money from jointly held savings and checking accounts. You may ask her, what are the essentials to take with you when you're leaving? Number 4, if a client lives alone, discuss what can be done to ensure safety at her residence. For example, the locks on the doors can be changed or a security system can be installed. Good questions for this discussion include, what steps should you take to ensure safety at your residence? What actions and/or resources are required? Who can help you with this? Number 5. If there is a protection order in place that relies on paper forms, discuss where the client keeps this paperwork. The protection order should always be with her. For example, if she decides to use a different purse, this is the first thing that should be put there. Important questions include, where do you keep your paperwork? Is this place safe and convenient? Are there any changes needed? Number 6, discuss safety while commuting. For example, you may discuss what can be done if there is a problem while driving or taking public transport. You can help the client make a plan for responding to problems while driving or on public transportation by writing down alternative routes or escape routes. Number 7, safety during drug or alcohol use needs to be addressed separately. The client must make sure that if they use alcohol or any illegal substances, that they do it in a safe place and with people who understand the risk of violence and are committed to their safety. You might ask them, what are the additional dangers and risks related to drug or alcohol use? Where can you use alcohol or drugs safely? Who would keep you safe when you're using or have just used alcohol or drugs? Number 8, discuss what can be done if a client feels down and is considering returning to the abuser. Questions can include, what are the main reasons or factors that might cause you to return to the perpetrator? What are the main reasons or factors for not returning to the perpetrator? What are the pros and cons for returning or not returning to the perpetrator? Write them down, then assess and compare them. What could be done to prevent you from returning to the perpetrator? Create a plan. Number 9, online safety is also an important point in any safety plan. A professional can advise the client to change their passwords for their mobile phone, computer, email, and social media profiles. There is always a risk of cyber violence. Ask, what could endanger your online safety? State the most important factors. What can you do to ensure your online safety? State all the required actions in accordance with the factors mentioned above. Each of these 9 categories includes questions to collect information about the specific case or situation. Creating a plan assists the woman to focus on the most important points for ensuring her safety and reminds her about safe spaces. The plan can be verbally discussed with the client, but it is best to have it in a written form. The professional can advise her to always keep it with her. In some cases of severe stress, anxiety, or fear, it is preferable to have this plan be quickly available in her phone or notebook. This is the end of today's lecture. You can find some of the assessment tools that I have mentioned in the materials attached. Please have a look and compare them to the assessment tools or methods that are usually used in your organization. Thank you for watching and have a good day.